Welcome back to the Working Mama podcast. This is a podcast for ambitious working mums who are trying to navigate career, motherhood, identity, ambition, guilt, flexibility, and everything else in between. Whether you're returning to work after maternity leave, deep in the juggle of raising young children whilst building your career, or simply trying to work out how to make it all fit together, this podcast is here to remind you that you are not alone and give you some hints and tips along the way. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found us. Today's episode is such an honest and important conversation with Natalie McDonald, founder of Working At It, a former LinkedIn editor, journalist, content strategist, and mum of two. In this episode, Natalie shares her incredibly raw experience of returning to work after parental leave, only to be made redundant 6 weeks later during the AI transformation happening across tech and media industries around the world. We unpack the emotional impact of redundancy, identity, motherhood, career pivots, confidence, building a personal brand, community support, and what happens when your safe corporate career suddenly no longer feels safe. Yes, we do cover a lot. And what I love most about this conversation with Natalie is her honesty. She speaks so openly about the grief, fear, and resilience, and also the rebuilding that comes with major career change, especially whilst raising small children. There's also a powerful message in this episode around investing in yourself, backing yourself, and using your voice and building a community as a working mum. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with another working mum who needs to hear this conversation today. Your shares genuinely help this podcast reach more women who need support and connection in this season of life. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome, Natalie, to the Working Mama podcast. I am so excited that you have actually agreed to come on today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we have been talking about this. In fact, I think we have been talking about doing this for years now. So I'm really, really pleased because certainly from my perspective, it's come at a really interesting time.
It certainly is interesting. And I have followed your journey from when you were at LinkedIn and now having your own company, and you have had such a journey in between as well. And I really loved watching your, as you became a mum and everything like that on LinkedIn, which I'm really looking forward to unpacking today. So let's get into it and just what's been your story as a working mum. So just talk us about through your career journey so far. And also, I know you've also got a background in journalism and communications.
Yeah, so I started as a business journalist. First things first, I'm British. I'm from the UK. I've been in Australia for 12 years. And before that, I actually lived in Eastern Europe as a business reporter. And that is where I actually met my partner, in a bar on karaoke night in Eastern Europe, where all great, pre-Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, pre all of that online dating stuff. And then I relocated to Australia and was working here. I was freelancing for a bunch of different organizations before landing at Sky News Business, which, may she rest in peace, doesn't exist anymore. But it was the business channel adjacent to Sky News, and landed there as a producer before clawing my way into an on-air role, which I just adored doing. So I had the opportunity to host a whole variety of different shows on Sky News Business, and including the breakfast coverage. So I was on air 6 a.m. when Wall Street closed through to ASX market open at 10 a.m. market open. And that was brilliant. I loved it. There was nothing like live news and breaking news and whatever Trump got up to when he came into the White House as well. It was first time round. I was on air first time round when he was, China trade tariffs and the rest of it. And then I moved to LinkedIn. In fact, I was headhunted to join LinkedIn because I was British and they needed someone to write UK news. That was really my qualifying criteria at the time. I don't know if I would get the job now. I'm that sort of infiltrated here, but I was hired to write UK news there. And that was really the beginning of just such a life-changing chapter professionally and personally as well. I, during the bushfire crisis, reported on small business. Well, actually, that started in bushfires and then into the pandemic. And so interviewing government ministers and CEOs and small business and connecting people with the information that they needed at the time, because obviously it was just such a difficult time. Then after my first parental leave, in fact, I pivoted into diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace. And that was the work that really filled my cup. And that was producing content. So LinkedIn Lives. I pivoted my newsletter to the LinkedIn term is DIBS, diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace. So getting to talk a lot about gender, about caregiving, LGBTQIA plus issues, homelessness, neurodivergency, disability, and really looking to build frameworks and internal frameworks as well at LinkedIn to support and amplify underrepresented voices and give them a platform in that space. And that was work that I really enjoyed doing. And adjacent to that, ran editorial campaigns across APAC and international. So the likelihood is, this is how I always frame it. If you have a top voice in your feed that maybe was a top voice in tech or retail or whatever, the likelihood is I did the beep, beep, bop button pushing to actually give them the badge. So I was responsible for that program across 13, 16 markets. That was the start of it. And then obviously it did go ever so slightly sideways. 6 weeks after my second parental leave, I was unfortunately made redundant as part of the AI transformation. And then I've entered my yes era, where I launched my own consultancy, hosted podcasts, I've appeared on podcasts, and I'm doing a whole bunch of things. We're calling it a portfolio career.
And that seems to be a new thing as well these days of the portfolio career. And we'll certainly get into your redundancy story and the experiences around that in a little bit. But take us back to becoming a mum. You've obviously been working in fast-paced, like high-pressure environments, such as live TV, and also then working then more probably in the still the social media world and that of LinkedIn, but still a journalist in that form. How have you then found that transition, both personally and professionally, also with your background and your different roles?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think the really important thing to note is I became a parent during the pandemic, and I worked on a really small team at LinkedIn at that time. There was 3 of us, 3 women. And we worked out that when I had my child, my eldest, we would have 6 children between the 3 of us. Now, I became a mum in March 2021. So we were already a fair way into the pandemic. And so I had watched these 2 beautiful women around me and many of the women and caregivers around me attempt to parent and attempt to homeschool and have daycares closed and do what I now call loud parenting. Yeah. So I became a parent in a period where I didn't have any other experience. I only knew that world where I didn't have to experience any of the, working like you don't parent, parenting like you don't work. I came into this whole sort of new chapter with those worlds already blended. And I always say that I wouldn't have known how to do that. I wouldn't have known how to loud parent without those women around me to show me. So funnily enough, I was on a client call the other day and I had my eldest at home. I said, I'm so sorry. I just had to pause the meeting for a moment because he didn't want to watch PJ Masks anymore. Yeah. He wanted to watch Bluey. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Please bear with me just one moment. Change that. And then was back in the game. And they actually said, I love how confident you are, like in taking that decision and being like, so sorry, this conversation can pause. Like this is not brain surgery. My child needs me for 20 seconds. And now I'm back and you have my full attention. But it's honestly because I never knew. Yeah. And in the same way that when I also had people who would say, gosh, and this isn't true, by the way, but they would be like, oh, I never saw people talking on LinkedIn about parenting or caregiving kind of, before you did. And I have to say that's not true. That may just have been true within their community and within their network and the content that they were seeing. But again, I've written or made content around every other aspect of my life. I am perpetually online. So parenting just became part of that. And yes, perhaps my content was more visible because of the platform and the role that I had on LinkedIn. But yeah, it was more of a, well, of course I talk about being a parent. I talk about everything else. Why wouldn't
Why not this? Yeah. Because you decided to take a sabbatical as well, didn't you? Or you went overseas during one of your parental leave?
Yeah, we did. So, and again, it's that pesky pandemic. So I didn't see my family for the last time I had gone home was December 2019.
Oh, for everything, yes.
Yeah. And I was supposed to get married in July of 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. We decided to have a baby instead. And I didn't visit my family again. I saw my mum for the first time in January 20. We were able to get her to Australia, and I didn't go home. And the rest of my family, my dad included, they weren't able to meet my son until August 2022. So he was 18 months old. So during that time, I had experienced a pandemic. I had fallen pregnant. I'd had a couple of surgeries, actually, like other random stuff, but I'd had some surgeries. I'd cancelled a wedding. I'd had a baby. All of these things without being close to my family. My granddad, who I'm incredibly close to during that time, he also was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer, which he's now living with, and which is wonderful. But all of these things, so much life happened and was missed out on during that period. And so we had always said next time around, and we were lucky, we'd experienced a pregnancy loss, but after that we fell pregnant with my youngest. And we always said next time round that we would take that opportunity to go back to the UK. Obviously, I'm British, my partner's Australian, but that we would go back to the UK. So when I was on my second parental leave, we did 6 months in the UK. We lived with my mum and dad. We did so much travel around Europe and saw friends. My son attended a term of preschool in the UK. So we were embedded. My very, very best friend had also had a baby prior to my son being born. So we were on parental leave together, and it's one of those things we would never be able to make up for the time, but we had a damn good crack at it.
Yeah, wow. And how did that then, I guess, enable or support then your transition back into work after having that parental leave experience?
I was ready to go back. I had actually extended, so I took 10 and a half months first time round, and second time round, because we had gone overseas and then I was coming back, and I'd actually left a really teeny tiny window, and I realized the closer that we were getting that I just needed a hot minute more to be able to settle ourselves and to be able to get my son back into preschool in Australia and sort of all the things. So I did actually push my return to work back ever so slightly, but I was happy to be back. I was happy to be going back. I was happy to be contributing. I was really excited about some of the bodies of work that I was going to be doing. I'd also been accepted onto a Women in Tech internal conference thing that I was getting to attend in Bangalore in India. So we felt as ready as we could be, obviously recognizing that the transition, I think, from 1 to 2 is a lot.
Yeah. How did you find it? I actually personally found it harder to go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2 than 0 to 1.
I think it's very, very different. When you have one, you can lay in bed and look deeply into one another's eyes. And I couldn't do that second time round because you've got, my son had just turned 3 when my youngest was born. And so I've got to get him up and go to daycare, and it was a lot. It is still a lot. And my children they're 3 years, 2 weeks apart. In fact, we're about to enter birthday season. So I'm soon to have a 5 and 2-year-old, and I am not okay with it. But they are gorgeous together. My eldest is now strong enough to get my youngest out of the cot. So they come barreling in, the pair of them. Hello, mummy. "Arrow, Daddy." And you're like, guys, it's 5:03. Go back to bed. You gorgeous, gorgeous creatures. And my youngest is particularly, we think he's learning a new skill. I'm not sure if it's like Spanish or coding or God knows what, but he's on some sort of developmental leap. This morning, he had an awful lot to say for himself. None of it was good. So I think we are still in that learning how we do this.
Yeah. My children are 5 and 7, and trust me, I'm still learning as well.
Exactly.
But days of when they're trying to get each other out of the cot and you're like, oh my goodness, you can do this now. Right. Okay. This is a new skill. Great. You're very proud of yourself. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to deal with this now?
Exactly that.
The joys. So speaking about early mornings and your return to work, so you earlier said that you were made redundant from LinkedIn. So you were 6 weeks back after your second parental leave, and you got told that you were being made redundant. This is probably every new mum's and also women returning back into work after parental leaves, like worst nightmare, and also probably worst fear, because it's one of those things that when we return, we're always thinking, it's always a little bit of the analogy as well. I'm so grateful I'm going back and I've got a job. But unfortunately, you went back, but then certainly told, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. And honestly, so I know that when people are made redundant, they go through all sorts of phases, and quite often they can turn quite inwards and be like, oh, why wasn't I good enough? And thankfully, as I say, I had been accepted on, and I had attended a Women in Tech internal conference workshop thing in Bangalore. And a lot of that was around like your values, your skills, like your 10-year vision. It was a lot of like the deep think work. And I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that, because I was really sitting in a place where I was like, do you know what? Like, I'm good at my job. I really like my work. I'm getting to do interesting projects. I'm getting to mentor. I'm working on stuff that ladders all the way up. And I was in a really warm, fuzzy spot where I was like, I know what my USP is. I know what my values are. I know what I stand for, and I know how I present that in the workplace. So that was really amazing. And so it meant that actually when this came about, I didn't have that whole inward turmoil of like, well, maybe if I just tried harder in this space, or maybe if I had concentrated on these goals. I didn't have that. And I'm grateful for that. Have had is some sort of, not shame. I 100% don't feel any shame. This was something that happened to me. This was not something of my doing. But I do have, if I'm being really truthful, a teeny tiny bit of almost embarrassment about the fact that, yes, I have built quite a public platform around advocacy and amplifying women voices and caregivers and many other communities alongside it as well, and shared a lot of my journey, and have put an awful lot of my career, certainly over the last few years, into content around how caregivers should be supported. So then to, as you say, be literally every caregiver's worst, like nightmare fuel. I am a living, walking example of nightmare fuel. That does bother me. That bit bothers me a little bit, because I almost feel a tiny bit of a fraud that I did tell so many people in so many organizations, caregivers can be this, women can be this, mums can be this. And then I sort of had the rug pulled out from underneath me a little bit. I've never said that out loud.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I actually don't see you as a fraud. I actually see you in the other way, having watched you now for a while, that actually you're such a strong advocate in this space, and it just shows that it can almost happen to anyone. But I think also what is really inspirational and people can take from you, Natalie, is that the way that you've actually pivoted, as you said, you haven't wallowed in it. You understand. You've got this confidence. So it was almost doing that earlier work. As we know, returning back into work, re-understanding our values. Who am I? Because that's so much also about that transition back into work. We have that confidence dip as we come back. You did that work. So you're like, nah.
Yeah, I didn't have the confidence.
This is one company. They are essentially, as it was, 30 years ago, computers going to take my job. It was AI's taking my job. And it's interesting as well, I think, how you've reacted in it. So I think it actually also shows that no, you can try and pull me down, but I'm actually going to rise up and elevate and actually show you that you can't beat, a working mum. I'm going to show you, which I actually I take inspiration from your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so kind. But I think I also genuinely, and I always say this, I view my experience or my story through two lenses. And one of them is like, I understand. Like I'm a grown up. I've been in tech and media a really long time. I understand the landscape. I particularly understand, of course, like the AI transformation and what that is doing for organizations and what that is doing for professionals. I get it. And then there is the other part of me that is also, no, but we need to have a conversation about the women, and we need to have a conversation about the mums, and the fact that in periods of economic volatility and vulnerability, as we are now as a result of the AI transformation, caregivers and women and other underrepresented communities in the professional workspace are the last people to be investing in themselves, but often the first and the most vulnerable to these changes. And that, I think, particularly with AI exacerbating what we're seeing in terms of gender equity gaps and the ability to upskill and knowledge, and also, again, investment in ourselves and in our own skills and without meaning to be super obvious about it, but also in our own platforms and building a voice and network and communities. That is also a conversation as well. So I see both. I get all of it. And maybe that is what's allowed me to be more resilient, is that I get it and I understand. I still would have preferred it hadn't happened.
Yeah. Because how many other people were let off at the same time? Because it was a mass redundancy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really large. So a reminder, so this was LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Microsoft owned. Microsoft did something in the realms of, I think it was 6,000 job cuts globally. Wow. LinkedIn was hundreds. I think it was around 600. So yeah, it was a lot of people. And again, I have to add, I mean, obviously we're talking about my experience with LinkedIn, but even in my mother's group at the time, there were 20 something of us, 20 of us, and 4 of us had been made redundant, either on parental leave or shortly after.
Geez, what was that experience like, I guess, as a community going through this together?
Well, a lot of us at that point, because we were, I mean, you might remember this. I'm sure people listening will remember this. Like, obviously, when you're in your newborn days, like, you're all in it. But then when people do start to go back to work, the chat gets a little bit quieter because everyone is just like, oh my gosh, how do I do both of these things? And so those frantic 2 a.m. messages become slightly fewer and further between. So it took a little while actually for the stories to kind of start to emerge. But then when you put it together, you were just like, wow, this isn't just an anecdote, or like, oh, I think this might be happening. Even only weeks after I was made redundant, my sister-in-law was as well, with a 7-week-old. As it happened, she was replaced into another role. But imagine going through the stress of that and not understanding what is going on, when you have quite literally a newborn. But so it is like, so this isn't just my experience. This is the experience of many people. So I'm not special, is what I'm saying.
But I think you're a very good person to actually be the voice and an advocate, to actually also shine a light on some of these experiences, but also what it's like on both sides. As you say, you're seeing it. Is it something that, and what's been the experience, and I guess that others around you have had it as well, that you could, I guess, is there any learnings, hints, tips and advice for women that are either maybe a little bit fearful this could happen to them if they're currently listening and they're on parental leave, or they may also have been recently been made redundant for a variety of reasons, because we know there's so much volatility going on from an economic situation, geopolitically, AI. It's just kind of throw it all into this hot pot, and it's interesting mix of the world at the moment.
So I will preface this with saying, as mentioned, at the end of last year, I set up my own business, working at it. It's a consultancy that works with professionals, leaders, and organizations on brand narrative and thought leadership, very much centered on LinkedIn. Because when I came out of LinkedIn, it was all anyone wanted to talk to me about. And at first, it was really bloody annoying. So I was like,
Yes.
they're not paying me anymore. And then after a while, I just sort of had a pause moment and was like, if my goal is still to connect people with the information that they need to build a career and to build economic opportunity, if I want to have impact at scale, if I still want to be supporting my gals, my mums, my gays and my theys, how can I do this? And I realized that actually it was through supporting others, again, either individuals or organizations, in building purpose-led, values-driven personal and organizational brands, with that idea that, if you have a leader a CEO on LinkedIn who is using their platform and using their voice to tell stories about the fact that, like, yes, they're a CEO and they have a team of 200 people, but actually they have a toddler that thinks sleep is for the weak, or they have a partner that they've been supporting through postnatal depression and anxiety. The power of that and what that tells,
it's huge.
Steve in marketing or whatever, how that can then activate a whole community to actually be thinking differently about the workplace and about how we create positive and productive workplaces for all communities. And that was kind of what led me to this. And the reason why I preface this answer with that is because I genuinely am of the belief that the most important thing that people can be doing right now is, if you're able to, go to events, go to conferences, go to networking events, ask people for coffee. If you can't get to events, and obviously understanding that everyone has different support mechanisms at home, or you might just not want to leave the house, totally fine. We're not judging here. Using platforms like LinkedIn or Substack or, gosh, TikTok, I don't care, to be following either leaders within your industry, within other industries, just people you admire, and reading, listening, learning about what they're thinking the future holds. What are they seeing in your industry or in industry that you might want to be in, or just the business world at large, to really be getting those experiences. In turn, also taking that and start to build and invest in your own platform and in your own skills, because no one else is going to be giving you a voice. You have expertise. We all have expertise in some area, shape or form. So whether that is starting to post once a week on LinkedIn, and that is all it takes, just once a week, and you're getting profiles, getting 4 times visibility, or starting a Substack, or even just going on LinkedIn and just commenting on people's posts if you don't quite feel confident enough to be posting yourself, and just start using your voice, telling your own stories, owning your skills and expertise, and building a network. Because if the worst should happen, that network is potentially going to be your pathway to your next role and your next opportunity. As I say, I came out of LinkedIn with 35,000 followers, with a newsletter that goes to 115,000 subscribers. My exit post from LinkedIn went, I hate the term saying something has gone viral, but it went big, and my emails were just full with people asking, hey, would you want to freelance here? I mean, some of it was rubbish. Some of it was like, I've got a med tech firm in Minnesota. Take a look. No, friend, I'm sorry. We are not. No,
we're not in that.
Really kind, but that was how I got opportunities like Fear and Greed. Because no one is going to do it for you. So as I say, whilst I get how it sounds, me talking about, be a thought leader, build a brand. I genuinely believe it is the most powerful thing that particularly caregivers, women, people who are concerned for their futures, is the most powerful thing that you can be doing.
It's amazing as well. It's so much of, no matter what industry you're in, it's about who you know, not necessarily about what you know. And it's just those connections, and even knowing the different people in the industry that you can actually then tap on the shoulder of, and different organizations have gone, oh yeah, I know Joe Blogs over here, and oh yep, he's a good person, and things like that.
It shortens the journey so much.
100%.
If you reach out to someone, and then they can actually go to your profile and like that's your shop front, that's your personal website, and you'd be like, oh yeah, this person, I get who they are and what they do and what their values are and what they stand for and what they're interested in. Well, I mean, that's how I've ended up being on here.
Exactly. I think your redundancy post, I think I actually did reach out because you're like, oh, I'm interested in different things. And then, look, whenever you got a chance, happy to have you on as a guest. And that's exactly then how.
Exactly. And here we are nearly 12 months later.
We finally worked it out.
Yes.
But it's one of those things. And I know that it can be quite uncomfortable. And obviously, no doubt in many redundancies, there's those different stages of grief, of anger and things like that as well. But it's one of those things. My sister's also been made redundant because you're going to be made redundant a few times in your career, isn't it? There's some stats that it's also about how you probably bounce back, because you're going to, for some people, you will hit that rock bottom, but also then it's then elevating yourself back up and positioning yourself, because it's amazing as well when you're going for a job. You're not just looking at the resume, they're also looking at, okay, well, what network do you have and what brand and beyond the resume, really.
But I also want to be really clear that this is not a bounce back story, if that makes sense. For someone who might be listening and is like, oh, Natalie really sounds like she's got her shit together. I don't. Categorically, I don't. I am absolutely still working through that experience and still working through. Did you
hit that rock bottom of, oh my goodness, like what was the original thought of, like, because how were you told?
LinkedIn obviously is a US-centered organization, like a lot of tech organizations, and we had known that something was coming. It's like a tech gossip website called Blinds, and when you sign up, you actually have to use your company email address to sign up. And so quite often people will use it. For instance, an engineer who might have an offer from Google and Meta, and they'll go to it to be like how do these offers stack up? What are the pros and cons? And also people do put things like, layoffs are coming or that kind of thing. So we had been under the impression that something was coming, and I had been up late working and like with the kids, like classic working mum stuff. And it was just after midnight. And I remember thinking, it's about clocking on time in San Francisco. I wonder. And within minutes, the first email came through. So I'm not going to say that I did this, but it was definitely this whole thing. And so the big company-wide email comes through, and you're told that you're going to get, in a few minutes, you're going to get an email from your division leader, for lack of a better word. And that came through. And then it was, if you receive a calendar invite in the next hour with this explicit line, subject header, your role is impacted. And we still hadn't been given numbers. We still hadn't been given exactly what teams were impacted. The irony is I had thought that I would potentially be at risk of redundancy for a couple of really random, varied reasons. And it was actually part of the reason why I went back full-time and not part-time, because it was something I was considering.
Okay.
But I was worried. I didn't want any payout, should it happen, to end up being diminished because of being part-time. And it was everyone around me. Thanks. So smart. And everyone around me was like, no, because of the role that I was in at the time was very global in nature and was very involved in lots of different campaigns. And there was a lot of things that ran through our team. They were like, no way. And I was right. Worst thing to be right about, but still very validating. And I thought, I'll stay online another 15 minutes. I'll give it 15 minutes just to see. And also because, my phone was pinging from gorgeous teammates around the world. And we were all like, oh, what's happening? Have you heard anything? And the calendar invite came through. So I knew it was midnight. It was before 1 a.m. By 1 a.m., I knew that I was losing my job in the morning.
Just sleep.
Oh, I'm not sure that I did. No, I remember, and I actually looked at this the other day because I was clearly like not quite with it. I took a screenshot and I sent it to a gorgeous colleague overseas and just wrote, "Shit, I'm gone." And that was it. And I think that really summed it up. Just like, oh. So I woke my partner up and was like, babe, I'm losing my job in the morning. And he's like asleep. And I remember
He's like, what?
Yeah. And he's like, how? No, you might not. You don't know. I'm like, let me just walk you through the last hour of my life. And I remember it being 3 a.m. I'd been pacing around the apartment and it was 3 a.m. and I was sat on the floor in my children's bedroom, again, still talking to colleagues all over the world, and what on earth am I going to do next? I was devastated. LinkedIn was professionally and personally game changing. I was part of a surge hire, which sounds really funny in latter context. I think the team was going from like 48 to like 75 editors.
Wow,
and I was part of that surge. And when I left, there was 250, 350, something along those lines.
Yeah.
We were still such a gorgeous, tight team. These were people who had come to my parents' home when I was in the UK on parental leave, who'd sent gifts, who'd sent flowers when my children had been in hospital. Although I'm obviously sad about how it ended, I should add, I still work very closely with LinkedIn. Although obviously I'm sad how it ended, I can't be unhappy about my time there at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I know when people made redundant, like, oh, that was a crap organization and things like that.
Genuinely not. And I think, a lot of people talk about like, being made redundant is like the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm like, I'm sure I'll get to that point and I'll be really obnoxious then, but it's definitely still a journey on processing, and not necessarily for me. I get grumpy for my kids. I get grumpy when there are things that I feel impact them.
How so?
So things like if I'm not able to be present because I'm a bit stressed about some clients that I'm not hearing back from, or because I've got I'm picking up a shift somewhere and I've got to try and work out, well, actually, that means I'm not going to be able to do pickups for a while. The really key example was late last year. There was a really bad, sounds rubbish. There's a really bad bout of gastro that did the rounds in our local area.
No, everyone's worst night.
Yeah, well, and my eldest was actually off preschool and daycare for 2 weeks. 2 entire weeks. He was really unwell. He was so unwell. And he did 1 night in hospital. My youngest did 3 nights in hospital.
Yes.
Yeah, we were like, what can I do? Like, how can I help? What do you need? And I was clearly feeling a bit sassy because I was like, I need carers leave. Yeah. I need sick leave. I could really do with an employer that has, policies to support me to be able to take the time off to look after my children who are sick and who need me. And I have beautiful clients who were obviously like, don't worry, like we can push back our meeting, we can push back this work, which I super appreciate and is really reflective of the community that I've been able to build with working at it. But like, do you know what can't wait? My mortgage.
Yeah, the bills still need to be paid.
And so that's, and when I'm trying to action, okay, well, who's going to look at, and we'll do that. And it's almost like you're talking about them as if they're an inconvenience, and they're not. They're amazing and they're the best things ever. But how do you make all of these things work, especially in an environment where you're self-employed and your time
is in hospital?
And your time is your money. So those are the moments that I get grumpy. Otherwise, I'm pretty chill.
Yeah. So just out of interest, what made you start your own business as opposed to actually then trying to look for an ongoing employer-based position?
It was a mixture of things. I think when I first came to Australia, I freelanced for a while. And I'd always felt like I had that bit of hustle in me. And I think there was also a feeling that I wanted to have a little bit more autonomy. And probably, maybe I was feeling a little bit burnt by perhaps trying to be something that would fit a large organization or whatever, that kind of square peg round hole thing. And I just kind of wanted to sit and own my superpowers for a little bit, the platform that I've built, the content that I love creating, the communities that I love supporting. And I just sort of thought, well, why not? And as I say, I had spent so long supporting communities and individuals and organizations on platform. It was all anyone really kind of wanted to talk to me about. And it was this realization that everyone is trying to fly the plane that I essentially helped build. The knowledge and experience that and the platform know-how that I have is unparalleled. Why not lean into that and see where that could take me?
Yeah. And how's the experience going for you 12 months on?
It is mixed. It is hard, but it is mixed. People are very good at being enthusiastic. Enthusiasm doesn't pay bills.
No.
Engaging does. But with that said, I've also had really great community. I'm currently doing a short-term contract at a major TV network, and that was off the back of a friend connecting me with the hiring producer there at the time. So I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of people who want to see me do well. And so that's really, really wonderful. And being able to just test out different things and see what works and see what doesn't and see what fills my cup. And obviously some of the clients that I've been able to take on through working at it have been really, really enjoyable as well. And there is the point that, it does offer that level of autonomy, but it is a lot. It's not a lot, and it's not challenging at times either.
Yeah. So how do you find the juggle now as a business owner and then also as a working mum?
So the thing that I'm working on at the moment is I'm doing a 5 a.m. so that I can get to the gym. My partner's in construction, so if I don't get to the gym between 5 and 6, I'm not going.
Yeah.
So so I've got the 5 a.m. alarm, but it does mean I can't work into the early hours of the morning as I would usually do. So I'm learning. And that's the thing, I'm still learning and still figuring it out. And there have been things that, as I say, at the moment I'm on a contract at a major TV network, and it means I can't always do pickup. And that makes me a little bit grumpy, but there's give and take with all of it. There is compromise with everything. Someone recently was talking about it's a choose your hard. It is hard.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
It's hard in a large organization. It's hard working for yourself. It's hard with kids. It's hard with no kids. It's like those Goosebumps books, if you read them when you were younger.
I remember them as a kid, yes.
Yeah, like turn page 36 to like walk down the really scary path, or like turn page 38 to go back to your friends. It's very much like that. It's choose your own adventure.
So reflecting on this as well, how do you think that what redundancy has taught you about your identity and also your career? Do you think it's shaped you in the last 12 months?
Oh my goodness, that's so good. So someone actually recently in an interview asked me if I care a lot about my work. I think I would care a lot about my work no matter what job I was in. My dad's a photographer and has been a small business owner as long as I knew. My mum used to work at the business as well, and she would pick us up after school and take us to the studio. And we had like this big like portable TV. It would look so alien now if you pulled it out. And we had Aladdin, we had Pinocchio, and we had a couple of other videos that we would just watch like on repeat while my parents worked at growing the business. My dad, in the early days, he had every third Sunday off, and converted our garage into a dark room. And he worked tirelessly. They both really, really instilled really strong work ethic. So I think, no matter what job I was doing, I would give it 110%. And someone did actually ask, if I did have resentment about the fact that, how much I clearly cared about my work and how much of myself I invested in LinkedIn, and obviously how things ended. And I was actually really quick to say, like, well, that wasn't their fault. Like, that wasn't the fault of LinkedIn. Like, they didn't necessarily ask for that. That was on me. Now, do I think that if I went back into traditional employment, that I maybe would hold on to a little bit more of myself? Possibly. I think what I've spoken about previously is that idea of maybe not handing over all of my superpowers and maybe keeping some of those for me, and maybe perhaps being a little bit more boundaried in, I guess, the changes to myself that I am and aren't willing to make in order to achieve success in that space. And again, and that probably is the part of me that maybe has been a tiny bit burnt by the experience, or maybe I'm just growing up. I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know if it has changed me per se, or changed like the idea of what success looks like. I got into journalism because I wanted to connect people with information. I wanted to help people understand how a war on the other side of the world impacted what they were doing at home. And I felt like that since a teenager. That was why I went into journalism. And throughout all of my roles, that has actually been the common thread, being in business journalism and helping people understand what on earth is going on, like in the share market or within economies or job data. Obviously at LinkedIn as well, you're really deconstructing things and creating content and amplifying voices that help others on their professional journey. And I'm still doing that now in various ways and why. So that is still what success looks like to me, certainly. And I think I will always be throwing myself 110% into whatever I do. My year of 2026, and this is my word of 2026 even, and this is the first time that I've actually given myself a word of the year, is explosive. And to clarify, that's not in like a blow stuff up kind of way, but in a send the damn email, ask the bloody question, go out there and just do the thing.
Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah. And I think, and that is Natalie through the ages. I think maybe I just needed the start of 2026 to really remind me of that, and for that word explosive to really be that North Star and that reminder that is who I am.
And do you think being a mum has then influenced that in any shape or form?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my kids think I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And obviously that changes.
Which is amazing.
My eldest mostly thinks that. We actually did an exercise the other day, and I was like, I think we'd maybe had a grumble at each other. I was like, right, we're going to say 5 things that we love about the other person. And so I listed off, he's so kind to his brother, and I love it when, he helps do da-da-da-da. And everything that my son listed was basically related to him getting what he wants. I like it when you buy me toys. I like it when you give me a snack. Everything was related to him getting his own way. And so I think, I say my vision of success hasn't changed, but through the mum lens, my vision of success is making my boys as proud as they can be of me. And the fact is they're too young now to know any different. They're always proud of me regardless. They couldn't care less what my job title is. Although I did show my eldest photos of inside a TV studio the other day, and he thought that was pretty bloody cool. But I think just making my boys as proud as they can be, I think is probably the one. And also that recognition that life with 2 small children is really expensive. So no matter what I do, I have bills to pay.
Yes. Kids aren't cheap, that's for sure. So Natalie, do you have any final tips of advice, particularly for women that are maybe going through the redundancy journey, or even those mums returning back into work from maternity leave and navigating it? Is there anything that you haven't said that you'd also like to have as a final tip or advice?
I think lean into your community. I was talking to a friend the other day who she's a new mum. Her baby was 12 weeks old, if that. And she was talking about essentially realizing the power of the mum community, and that you may ask your mum's group XYZ question, and before you know it, they're showing up on your doorstep. with that thing that you needed. And the fact that there is just no strength like particularly other parents around you, and particularly again through this lens as a working mum, other mums as well, whether they're working or not. So I think using your community, sharing how you're feeling, and not being afraid to ask for help. An example being my eldest is at preschool now 3 days a week, so we're inching closer to what big kid school life is going to look like, and we're sharing pickups, because that's the only way that between all of us we can make it happen. So we share pickups with another family. We've got like a joint little WhatsApp group. We share locations. We share pictures from whatever our children are up to. And that wouldn't have come about had we not all collectively sort of raised our hand and been like, this is really going to be hard. Should we work on this together? And I love it. Those afternoons with my son and his best friend, who he's known since they were both still bumps, are so fun. And it's such a great snapshot into who they're going to be when they're older. But that wouldn't have come about had we not raised our hand and had this other family not raised our hand and been like, so how are we going to do this? So definitely leaning into your community, not being afraid to raise your hand, and go back to being explosive. Ask the question, send the message, and you will find that community that you have sought to nurture will pay back tenfold.
Yeah, and generally as well, when you say I need some help, you're actually, if you say that, often 10 other people are actually thinking it, but just not game enough to actually say it themselves. So definitely
100%.
Don't be afraid to ask.
It's like that thing when you're in a meeting and someone's like, does anyone have any questions? And it's silent. And then someone will take themselves off mute and actually ask the really simple question that everyone on the meeting was trying to work out themselves, but didn't want to sound silly.
So much so. Now, Natalie, how can people connect with you and get in touch with you?
Well, there's this thing called LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So you can find me, Natalie MacDonald, or you can follow Working At It on LinkedIn. My website is workingatit.com.au, and I'm on all the platforms. I'm giving TikTok a red hot go at the moment, actually. I don't understand it, but I'm there.
I'm the same. I've got no idea. I post videos and I've got no idea what to do after that. So yes. Well, thank you so much for today's chat, Natalie. It's been absolutely insightful. And look, also being so honest about what the journey is like in actually going through a redundancy, which unfortunately more women than not will actually go through it, particularly as well when they're just returning from work, which is so unfortunate. But also we need advocates like yourself to actually stand up and say, no, women are a valuable, platform and person in the workplace and great contributors. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing in this space, and best of luck with the new business.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.